Welcome to the Kingdom Footprints podcast, a place where the footprints of faith are traced across the nations and the stories of God's work are brought to life through the voices of FMI workers around the world. In today's episode, we get to travel back to Germany. Now, if you remember in season 1, we spoke with Anna-Marie Mazzoni, who's in Bielefeld, Germany. That's episode 9 if you want to go back and listen. But today, we're heading about 2 hours south to Cologne, and we get to hear from FMI workers Brandon and Marcie Brazee. Now, Brandon and Marcie are serving as church planters and community developers in Cologne. Their purpose is to love and serve their community and to reach out to the 98% of the population that doesn't know Jesus. They have a heart for discipleship and a focus on developing young leaders. They've also started in 2024 a nonprofit called Serve the City, where they get to bring people in and serve their city on biblical foundations. In addition to their ministry in Cologne, they serve as regional coordinators for Europe, serving all of our FMI workers in the region and partnering with the Greater Foursquare work in Europe. But before we jump into this conversation, if you find this episode or any of the episodes you've listened to encouraging, would you do me a favor and hit that subscribe button from wherever you're listening? That simple thing ensures that you don't miss an episode, and it helps us get the good news out to others. Now, grab your tissues because you are going to need them as you listen to this conversation with Brandon and Marcie. Well, Brandon and Marcie, thank you so much for taking time to join me here on the second season of Kingdom Footprints podcast. I am so excited for this conversation.
Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
Yeah. And I know you guys just got back from the States. And so it was a time of rest and relaxation for you. And as we get into this next season of ministry, I just want to start off with what's the thing you're most excited about for this next month of life in Germany? Coming off vacation and totally going off script, I know, but.
I mean, we started a nonprofit and we've got tons of projects or service projects that we're doing. So excited to get those underway. We have new partnerships with corporations here in Germany, and getting those off the ground is really exciting for us to do.
Yeah. It's been about 2 years officially since we started a nonprofit. And so we're in this new season of, just kind of we're established now. And so now it's taking the next step. Like Marcie said, what we do is we create volunteering opportunities for individuals and try to build community through volunteering. And so we do a lot of work with refugees, with homeless, with the environment, with at-risk kids and women, and starting work with seniors as well. And so we're excited about the team we've built here and kind of the next season of taking the next step to really get established and launch further what we're doing.
Very cool. And we'll talk more about that nonprofit for sure. And then the second question, I usually start off with this one, but I have actually spent some time in Germany years ago. I mentioned this in the first season when I was talking with, why am I drawing a blank right now on the name?
Is it a worker?
Yeah, Mazzoni.
Anna-Marie.
Anna-Marie, thank you. Sorry, Anna-Marie. Anyways, I had her on last season of the podcast, and I was telling her this story that I was actually in Stuttgart in 2005, and that's where I felt like the Lord called me to full-time international missions work and sports ministry, and specifically because of this little boy. So anyways, I've been there a little bit, so I have a little bit of experience with southern Germany, but when I come back to Germany, because I definitely plan on coming back, what would be the first thing that you feed me?
Ooh. I mean, it depends how hungry you were. If we were in a quick situation, I would say the German fast food of Doner.
Okay.
Or if we had more time, I would say veal schnitzel. With actually a little bit, if we did it at our house, like the schnitzel, I'd say let's pair it with Chick-fil-A sauce, because it is fabulous together.
We've also decided that schnitzel is just like adult chicken nuggets or adult veal nuggets, because it's just a huge breaded piece of meat. So it goes great with that. Or the German one, which we also love, is you do with Preiselbeeren, which are little, it's almost like a cranberry or lingonberry, I guess they are, kind of compote you do it with. It's quite tasty.
Interesting. I love it. Anna-Marie said that she would feed me pig's knuckle bone that's deep fried.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, okay, not sure about that. No.
But it's not. So the chicken schnitzel is way better.
Veal.
Okay.
Well, veal. I mean, veal is the ultimate chicken or pork is also decent. So whatever schnitzel you get is also good.
It's all good. I love it. That's amazing, amazing, amazing. So I love talking about food and just experiencing people's culture, which you guys have been able to learn. You've been on the field for 10 years now. So would you just give us a little like family history? Let's start with that, right? So you two, do you have kids? How long have you been married? All of that jazz, kind of your family history.
Well, I grew up in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. I went to a Foursquare college in British Columbia, and then I came down as a summer intern hired by Pastor Steve of a certain region, also with FMI. And I was interning at a church in Bothell, Washington, where I met Brandon. And our first conversation actually was about missions, where Brandon told me that he was called to be a missionary in Mongolia. And I said, that's nice for you. I don't want to do missions at all.
Yeah, that's, let's see, fast forward a whole bunch of story. Lord brought us together. We got married and we served on staff at a church in Bothell. Well, first we church planted in Madison, Wisconsin with the aforementioned Pastor Steve and his family. And then after a few years of church planting, we came back to Bothell and served on staff at the church where we met. And I was a missions pastor and a college pastor.
I was an early childhood pastor because it was a larger church. And we served at the church for 10 years.
Yeah. We have two kids. We had our daughter, Caitlin, in 2009. So she's 17, which is crazy. And just before we came to the field, we had our son, Hudson. So he's 10 and a half.
Awesome. So let me back up a little bit in your story. Brandon, you knew that you were going to be on the mission field. What got you, Marcie, on board? Like, how did that come about?
It was a long time. We trusted, like when we first got together, like I needed to be okay with that, like going overseas. And I trusted that the Lord would prepare us to be ready at the same time. And so it was many, 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 many years before that happened. We had Caitlin, and after Caitlin, I was diagnosed with PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, which essentially means that it's super hard to get pregnant. And we had gotten an email by our DMM, who at that time was Kai Martin in the Pacific Northwest. Brandon served on I guess it was like District Missions Council. So he was like, Jeff and Debbie Roper, at that point, they were called area missionaries. Live in Enumclaw. They're going to be in town. Why don't you just take them to dinner and see what they have to say? And Brandon, approached me with this. And in my spirit, I knew it wasn't just dinner. And so I had massive amounts of anxiety going into it. And when we were meeting with them, also full of anxiety, they were sharing, desires and like dreams of us pioneering whole countries. And I felt totally overwhelmed. And I was like, who am I? I'm a kids pastor. And so I excused myself from the table. I went to the bathroom at BJ's in Tukwila, Washington, and burst into tears. And I said, Lord, I'm willing to go, but I'm asking for a child first. And then I composed myself and went back to the table and didn't talk to Brandon for 3 days.
That's not going to help in the child situation.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All this was unbeknownst to me. I wasn't aware of this deal she made with God or anything else, but we have a philosophy of ministry that we go where we're invited. And so fast forward to the next convention, and I was there, and Jeff introduced me to Jochen Geisler, who's the national leader here in Germany. And Jochen invited us to come and visit. He said, just come check out what we're doing, meet some pastors. I'll show you around. And we'll see if it's a good fit. And since it was an open invitation, and that's kind of our philosophy of ministry, we said, sure, we'll go and we'll just see what happens. And so we came with Caitlin, who was probably 7 at the time, 6 or 7.
No, she's 5.
Something like that. Anyway, she was still young, and she must have been 5. I'm doing the math in my head. Almost 6. And so we came and we visited. Yeah, Jochen just showed us around. The first thing we did was we went to this regional pastors gathering of Foursquare pastors here in Germany. It was like a weekend retreat they were doing. And the second night we were there, they're like, okay, we're going to do a night of prophetic prayer. And we're like, great. We're Foursquare. We're like, sounds good. But we hadn't really learned German culture yet. And they're like, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put each church's leadership team in the middle of the circle. Everyone's going to round them. We're going to give them 10 minutes. We're going to have a timekeeper, and we're going to have someone write stuff down. And whatever the Lord speaks to those praying in that 10 minutes, we'll write down, and then we'll move on to the next group. Very orderly German way. We're like, okay.
Yeah.
Turns out the Holy Spirit works within that. No problem.
It's amazing for those administrators.
Yeah.
And at the kind of towards the end of it, they said, okay, Brazee family, we want to pray for you as well. And so they put us in the middle of the circle, us and Caitlin, and they didn't know our story. They didn't know us at all at that point. We'd probably been there like a day and a half. And so as they're praying for us, one of the pastors prays over us and she says, what's medically been difficult for you will be made easy. More joy is coming. And so we immediately knew what that meant. And it was so specific because even Caitlin, our daughter, her middle name is Joy. And so even that phrase, more joy is coming, was just like so specific. And it was funny because later they're like, oh, wow, that must have really, really moved you. We saw your response. And it's interesting because that pastor's not even very prophetic who prayed for you, which is funny. We ended up serving with her at a church for the first couple of years we were here. And she's wonderful, but it was just such a funny, quirky little German thing. But so we really took that word to heart. And then we were here for a couple weeks, just scouting things out.
I just craved.
Yep. Marcie had a craving for meat. And she's also kind of nauseous the whole time we were here. But we're like, well, travel, jet lag, these kind of things. But the nausea persisted. So as soon as we got back the first morning, with jet lag, we're up at like 4 a.m. and Marcie takes a test.
And wouldn't you know, it was positive. And I was in shock. Brandon's like, weren't you more excited? I'm like, I'm honestly in disbelief. And so with U.S. healthcare,
because it'd been about 6 years of trying to get pregnant.
Wow.
So I went to the ultrasound technician, or whatever the first step is once you're pregnant. The ultrasound technician, she goes, I told her my story. And she goes, oh, I studied in Berlin. I'm like, of course you did.
Of course you did.
And then she checked me out and she goes, there is no evidence of PCOS in your body. And so in 1 second, I was like, the Lord healed me. And in the second, I was like, beep, beep. Go to Germany. Wow. And so that's what got me to the field, was the miraculous work of the Lord and providing our son Hudson.
Wow. That is so beautiful on so many levels to me. I'm here crying, first of all, because of the wonderfulness of the Lord and just how gracious he is to you guys to answer your heart's desire and that deepest cry. But then also I'm thinking how much the Lord loves the people of the nations, like how much the Lord loves the people that he needed you to minister to over these past 10 years. And even, going forward, that he would be like, I'm going to work all of this out so that I can get Marcie to say yes to go to the field, because I need her to work. I need her voice to be in this specific town at this specific time. I just think that's so beautiful how he's like, I'm going to work this all out.
Well, now you're making me cry. We should say something to get Brandon to cry, or cut it all out.
Shoot me a private text on things no, just kidding. That's what I love about this is the Lord speaks prophetically, like even in these moments, but that's just what I was thinking is like, gosh, the Lord will move heaven and earth to make us see him in situations because he cares so much about us personally.
Yeah.
All over the world. I think about just like Saturday night, I had a little boy here at this worship night that I hosted, and he's been coming to my yard for years. And anyways, we were just sitting there talking while the adults were kind of praying. And I said, hey, do you guys have anything you want to ask God or talk about, And we ended up getting on the conversation of Easter because of this past weekend. And I had mentioned how, Jesus died on Good Friday. And at that point, he had been kind of like laying on the side, and he piped right up and he's like, wait a minute. If Jesus died, why is it called good? At like 8 years old, And anyways, I just think about that where it's like, if I hadn't been, given the Lord my yes on a playground in Stuttgart in 2005, I probably wouldn't be here, long journey there. But anyways, it's not about me. It's about you guys. And I love that. I love that story. That is a beautiful story. And so I've mentioned it once in passing, but you guys have been there for 10 years now on the field, correct?
9,
Cologne. Oh,
we'll,
9.
We'll round up to 10.
Okay.
In mission years, it's 10.
Yeah.
With COVID, it's definitely like 15.
Yeah, for sure. So in Cologne, have you been there the whole time, or have you guys been in different places? Kind of tell me a little bit of that, your time.
Yeah, so our first
Germany.
3 years, we were in a little town in southern Germany called Bühl.
An hour, actually, from Stuttgart.
Yeah, not too far from Stuttgart. And that's where Jochen, the national leader we mentioned, that's where his church was. And so he asked us to come there first to work with him and serve in the church as we learn language, as we learn culture, and as we built relationships within Foursquare. I'm happy to do that. Super thankful for it. It's a small town, and so nobody uses English. So we were fully immersed. In fact, Jochen, whose English is fluent, he said, okay, you've got 2 weeks and then everything's in German. He refused to speak English with us after 2 weeks. And he forbid everybody in the church from speaking English with us. So we were fully immersed.
We hated it at the time, but now have become so thankful that he did that, because our German is decent. It's good. But just as future workers who are maybe in the deployment process, learn language, it's going to get you so much further by just learning the national language.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yep. So we're really thankful for that. It's a beautiful area right in the Black Forest. But we're city kids, and it was a very small town. And so we always knew that we were called to a city, and that was always the plan. And so during that kind of second year, we spent a lot of time going around to cities in Germany and trying to figure out where the Lord would have us move with the goal of church planting. And our criteria was just a city that didn't have any Foursquare work, which that's all the major cities in Germany other than Frankfurt. So it didn't really eliminate too much for us. And so we spent a lot of time researching and praying and visiting the cities and doing prayer walks and just getting to know them. And then that's actually really cool too, a really cool story, how we ended up in Cologne, because it was not really on our radar. It was a city that the leadership of Foursquare Germany had asked us to visit kind of as a last minute add-on almost to, we'd already visited the other cities and been praying through that. And we'd had a monthly prayer group we were doing to just kind of pray about where the Lord was leading us. And once we visited all the cities, we took a day, Marcie and I, and went kind of our separate ways and fasted and prayed and just spent some time with the Lord and just saw where he would have us move. And then as we came back together at the end of the day, we just both surprised each other and ourselves when we both felt like it was Cologne, because like I said, it was so far off our radar. And then our daughter, Caitlin, who was at 10 at this point, I think,
we had included her in all of the decisions, like to come to Germany. So we felt like it was important that we included her in this decision. So we asked her to pray too. And she came home from school and we're like, well, what'd you hear?
Because we didn't tell her what the Lord had spoken to us. We said, just go and pray and see what the Lord shares with you, and we'll see what he says.
And so she comes back home. She goes, I'm going to cry again. She comes home from school and she goes, I don't know that I heard the Lord, but all I heard was Cologne, Cologne, Cologne. And we're like, Caitlin, that's the Lord speaking to you, because he spoke the same things to us. And so that was really cool for her to be able to be a part of that decision and to be like affirmed that she does hear the Lord, even at 10 years old.
Yeah. And so it was clear, and the Lord led us to Cologne. Normally I'm the one who cries when I talk about the kids. So this is a nice little switch.
Let's blame it on jet lag.
So we moved to Cologne, and it was really,
it was a harder move
because it wasn't. It just wasn't on our radar, and it wasn't anywhere. Even when we visited here, we're like, oh yeah, that's cool. But it wasn't like we visited here when the Lord was like, oh yeah, that's the place. It was like, yeah, okay, it's a nice little place.
Yeah. The interesting thing though, when we did have like our prayer group, one of the pastor's wife, Jochen's wife, Brigitte, she said, or she prophesied that the Lord would speak to us in a normal sign.
Like the Lord would give us a sign, but she didn't mean like a spiritual sign, like a
actual
he would
sign.
speak to us through
like actual like road sign
or something.
Yeah.
And so the whole time we were searching the cities and
we're
praying, we're
it.
looking for, we're paying attention to signs and seeing if there's something that like makes it real obvious that this is where we should move or whatever. And we never saw anything, but we're like, sometimes, we don't hear from the Lord like we think we do, and that's okay. Maybe it wasn't a word of the Lord, but, we just kind of had that in the back of our mind.
So we came to Cologne like once a month this is all during COVID. So when we could travel, we came up here as much as we could just to kind of check it out, because all the major cities in Germany, globally, they have like little neighborhoods. And so we wanted to be in the right neighborhood where the Lord would have us. And so again, giving Caitlin the responsibility, or part of the responsibility, we're like, find a high school. So she Googled and she found she found a couple. And so we were visiting one neighborhood called Zolz, and
this was probably 6 months after we decided to move to Cologne, and probably on our 5th trip to Cologne, as we were trying to just scout out the city and get to know us. So we're well into the process at this point.
So we get out of the train. We looked up the school. We looked up the address.
No, we just looked up Zolz, and I just picked a train stop in Zolz, like a tram stop. And I was like, well, this says Zolz on it. We must be somewhere in the neighborhood. And so we just randomly picked a train stop and showed up here.
So we get out at the Zolzburg bus or train stop. We get out. I'm translating in my head.
You're good.
And I look up and there's a sign with a turn right symbol. So it's like a right arrow. And the street name is called Gottes Weg, which translates to God's way. Take a right. And I was like, Brandon.
She just started laughing like, oh man, like what? She's like, look at that.
It's not free. We have to go. So we go down the street, and then Brandon's like, I think the school is around here. And it was like 3 minutes from the stop. And so we knew our location. What we have come to find out was that housing in this neighborhood is extremely difficult, which the Lord miraculously provided for us. The percentage of Mitbewohner.
So residents who are under the age of 18 is like, it's over 50% kids. And so it's a huge family neighborhood. And it's just like, we love it. We love where we live. It's a perfect place. And now even, I guess this is probably the Lord, our office for our nonprofit, we look at that train stop out our front window.
Wow.
With the God's Way sign just right out there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so cool. I love that. I just love the Lord, like how he works out all these little intricacies, and it's not always in our timing, right? Like you guys thought, hey, we're going to find a sign on this trip, and it was so much later. So that's awesome. And so, okay, you just mentioned that about 50% of population is under 18.
In our neighborhood, yeah.
In your neighborhood. So we can kind of zone in on that neighborhood because that's obviously kind of your main ministry point, correct? Like obviously alone, but like you said, it's not like Belize where it's super small cities and towns. These are big towns.
Cologne's over 1 million people. It's the 4th biggest city in Germany. Well, our neighborhood's 37,000 people.
That's crazy. And this is what I'm trying to jump into, right? Is like, what's the demographic? What is the culture like in Cologne, in your neighborhood? Yeah. And then what's the spiritual climate of your area? So those are kind of those things I want to just release you to talk about.
Well, the interesting thing is, like, we've always felt called to serve and to minister to the German people. Now, from the refugee influx, a lot of Germany is filled with refugees and expats. So finding those pockets of Germany or of German nationals is kind of hard to find. I mean, in smaller towns, yes, it's fairly easy to pick those out. But when God transplanted us in Zolz, when we did the research, it's like 73% of the residents are German nationals.
93%.
Oh, 93.
So the demographics of Cologne.
Wow.
Marcie's, I'll do the nerdy stuff and you can do the spiritual stuff.
So, my girl math is off.
So Cologne is about a third foreign born. So it's 36% foreign nationals. It's a very diverse city. Like Marcie said, lots of refugees, lots of expats and migrants. Germany as a whole, it has the 2nd largest migrant population in the world, only to the US. So it's a really diverse country and a really diverse city. But in that, like Marcie said, like our neighborhood is German. It's like 93% German. And it's tons of families and lots of students. The University of Cologne is kind of on the edge of our neighborhood. It's got about 50,000 students that attend there. And so we have lots of students who have the older folks that live in our neighborhood have lived here. They're Kolsch, they're locals that have lived here forever. Like our sweet neighbor who's lived in her apartment across the way from us since 1962. And it looks like it's probably still 1962. It's like a time warp going back in there. It's great. It's so fun. But we've got just a really cool opportunity to minister to Germans in our immediate vicinity, even though we're working in a population that's much more diverse. And a lot of the work we do is beyond that as well with refugees and some of our nonprofit work, but specifically those around us, we're right in the middle of a big German pocket in Cologne.
But the spiritual climate is that Germans are very self-sufficient. And so if they need something, they get it themselves. And so what we've seen is that it's not like substantive poor, but they are poor in spirit. So like they are well educated. God is self, because I can provide for myself by educating myself. So what was interesting is during COVID is that the need surfaced for relationship. And Germans will say that they're not quick to throw out the word friend, as Americans, we're quick to say, hey, love ya. Oh, we're friends, even though we have spoken maybe like 2 times in our life. Right. They're not very quick to say like we're friends. So they establish relationship before they go as far as to have determine the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. That DTR.
But it was interesting. So during COVID that the need for relationship arose. So knowing this, saying that we have friends here in Germany that would also say that we are friends. And I mean, ministry is slow. You have to basically undo all of the things that foreigners have done, whether you know them or not, and basically establish relationship establish trust, and that eventually, hopefully, that, it's about the next step. It's not about, numbers for us. We count different on a different scale. It's those conversations about faith or about, my friend parents have died since we've been here in Cologne. And it's talking about grief and how I have dealt with the passing of my father, so that we can, we have this shared experience now, like me in faith and her hopefully coming to faith. So yeah, missions looks different in Europe.
Yeah. And really one thing we've learned is in Europe in particular, especially true in Germany, like the way you build trust is consistency over time. And so like, you can't just be here for like 2 years and build trust. Like the fact that we have been here this long, like that's what gives us credibility with people. Is we speak the language, we've put down roots, we've stayed, we're not in and out like a lot of foreigners have been, whether they're doing ministry or otherwise. Just that's kind of a typical rhythm. Because like Marcie said, it is hard to get to know Germans. It is hard to build community. And so if you're a foreigner, it's easy to get discouraged and easy to just say, hey, I'm going to go somewhere else where people are a little more open to building community. I'll give you just kind of one quick example. There's a gal that we started a ministry with at the church in southern Germany where we lived. And she's a German woman, very outgoing, nice family. And she was really trying to be intentional getting to know this other German family and just building a relationship with them. And as a German, it took 10 years of relational investment before this other family invited her over for dinner.
Wow.
Like, so that, and that's not always the case. That's, but that gives you kind of just an idea of what it means. And like Marcie said, like Germans will have like 3 or 4 people they consider friends and they're like, we're good. That's sufficient. That's what we need. And so it does take a lot longer to build a relationship and to build community and to build that trust where then you can speak into people's lives and they can receive it. They're open to it, and it's not just, some foreigner here with their own ideas and
we don't try and push the American way or the Canadian way. Like we're trying to fit into German culture while still maintaining our identity in Christ. And our identity is not American or Canadian or German. It's based on the kingdom of God. Yeah. And so we try to have a pairing, a mix of cultures, but it's very important not to say like everything you do here in Germany is wrong. Let's do it the American way. Like that's not how you're going to win favor.
Correct. They're going to be like, no.
So it takes a long time to learn the rhythms and learn the ways and the rules of the game here in Germany, here in Europe. I mean, it operates way differently.
Yeah, I have a ball cap actually, and Kiha and I talk about this all the time, but this ball cap says kingdom culture. And it's that, like you're just saying, this idea of it's not American, it's not Canadian, it's not German, it's not Belizean, it's not, it's kingdom, and with the one of the pastors I work with here, he and I have talked about this a lot too, because I'll ask him like, okay, how much do I push this? Because the American way, I need to push it a lot. The Belizean way is way over here. And he's like, nope, you just do it like this, because it's kingdom time. And he'll say a lot of times like, okay, Wednesday night prayer starts at 6 p.m. the Lord's time, instead of Belizean time, which would be like 8 p.m., So he's trying to help his own culture realize like there are ways to do things kingdom minded. And it sounds like that's a lot of what you guys are trying to do as well. And I love that. When you said, they're self-sufficient, I remembered that's definitely what I felt even back in 2005 when I was there. I was like, these people don't think they need Jesus. Like they have no need for a savior in their minds because they can provide everything that they need. And so I'm interested to know a little bit when it comes to the young people and you're working with them. And this falls kind of under the whole, like, what has God invited you into as a response to this spiritual need? So this is where, the nonprofit, but just even like you're saying, building relationship and stuff. But one thing that I found, again, 11 years ago when I was there, is that kids would hear us talk. And unfortunately, right, because we were American, they were like, yeah, this American kind of raises them up, right? But they would say, okay, you say that there's a God and you say that you love me, but my dad at home, who I know loves me, says that there's not a God. And I could see that wrestle for young people of hearing the truth of the word. And I think something in their spirit resonating with that, but then also the practicality of well, my parents say this. How do you navigate that kind of crossroads and dichotomy of maybe people's souls and spirits resonating to the truth of the word, but then having that practicality?
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. I mean, that's such a full question. But with our nonprofit, I mean, we didn't seek it out. Like, basically, the Lord just gifted us this opportunity, and we're taking it. It's a Christian-based or Christian-valued organization, not Christian in like name. But basically what we're doing is we're taking Christian values and Christian principles and establishing and putting them in the workplace. So when we're working with corporations and we're working with volunteers who may not know the Lord yet, are serving, are loving, are hoping, you know, like it's called Serve the City. And the words is like courage, hope, love, joy, peace, humility, compassion. And so we're teaching all of these principles before they even come to know the Lord. You know, like we've got people from all over the world serving with us, and the people that we get to serve. I mean, basically we're teaching these people how to do missions, and, you know, they're just not wise to it yet.
I think really, and Marcie touched on this earlier, like, you know, the way that we look at our ministry is we're trying to disciple people towards Jesus, right? Like we talk about being disciples of Christ, but we're finding and learning that discipleship can happen before we come to know Christ, right? And so we're trying to disciple people towards Jesus and help them take kind of the next step, whatever that is for them. And maybe that is, you know, going from saying God doesn't exist to acknowledging, oh, hey, maybe God does exist. Or maybe it's going from people could care less that we're pastors here to saying, well, what does it look like to start a church here? What does it look like to be a pastor? Like just starting to even just be curious about these things. Because a lot of times, like in the US, if we tell someone we're a pastor, usually it elicits a response. It could be a negative response. It could be hurt. It could be joy, whatever. But usually there's some type of response to it. Like it has some type of impact on people. Here, if we tell people we're pastors, like, great, and I'm a carpenter or I'm a musician. Like, it's like, you know, it's just a job. And actually, even a lot of the pastors here, especially in the state church, or religion teachers in schools, because they still take religion in schools, like a lot of them aren't even believers. It is just a job. And so to say you hold that position doesn't carry the same weight here in Germany as it would, at least in the US. And so it's an interesting thing when people actually that is interesting to me. Tell me more about that. When they start to ask questions, like that's how we see them kind of opening up a little bit.
Tell the story of the girl that came from New York that comes to our language cafe.
Oh, yeah. So this is interesting. There's a gal, she's Chinese, but spent some time studying in New York City. And she was invited to be part of some type of campus ministry there. I'm not sure which one it was when she was studying. And so she gotten involved with this campus ministry and was going to, I think, a small group or something. And one week they're like, okay, so next week at small group, we're going to do confession. And she's like, what's that? And they're like, well, you'll find out next week. And then she comes back the next week and they're talking about confession and confessing things. And she was like,
no,
out. I mean, beelined out, never went back. Bye. And the reason behind it wasn't about her faith or lack thereof. She's not a believer, but it's because she's from China. And in China, when you confessed, when you told things to people,
bad things happen.
Your parents disappeared. You know, like, I mean, authorities were told about something and then there's consequences. And so the idea of confession for her had nothing to do with forgiveness and spirituality, but everything to do with, you know, guilt and, you know, consequence.
Yeah.
And so she hadn't had anything to do with church since then. And she's in probably her late 40s now?
Yeah, I would say.
So probably call it 20, 30 years. And we do this language cafe as an outreach, and we do it in partnership with the church here. And so we use their space for it. And she was like, I saw that this was happening for 3 years before I showed up. Because it was happening in a church, I didn't want to come. Like simply by being held in a church. And it's not like a Christian event, it's just hosted there. But then she finally got connected with us through our nonprofit and started coming and just started to see here, there's real relationship. And this isn't something that is a reason for fear or a reason for anything. And we're able to help kind of overcome some of those barriers. But
that's just a step in this discipleship process where she came one step closer, even in entering a church. Like it may not on like the American scale mean much, but here in Europe, I mean, that's a huge step for her, for others to just take that one step to being comfortable in a church. And so like we take joy in those little wins.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you just hit something really important that, you know, like this podcast, is mainly targeted at American pastors, you know, And it's helpful to hear these types of stories, I think, for our pastors back in the States to help shift perspective of it's not always going to look like what you think it's going to look like. Church planting, it looks different worldwide, and ministry and metrics look different worldwide, and I think it's been a theme even through like the first season of like we don't have the same metrics. It makes sometimes being a missionary really hard because you're like, I have a lot to report, but like I don't have a report to give you. Like I don't have this numbers report to give you of how many we got saved and this and that. But it's those stories of you guys are making those transformation lives by being faithful. And I think that is something you said earlier as well. And this just shows, and I'd love to hear, if you have a couple other transformation stories or impact stories. But you said, consistency speaks volumes, like just being present. And I've had conversations with people where they're like, well, I feel like missions is shifting to where it's more US based or home based. And then we just go out on like super consistent short-term trips. And I think there's a place for that. But as you've spoken to, there's just such value in like, no, we need to transplant ourselves and really get rooted. So can you speak to that a little bit more, maybe a little more depth of just like the value of saying yes to the Lord, of I'm going to leave everything I know and I'm going to go and like get rooted and get, just dig deep here. I have people here all the time because Belize is a beautiful place to visit. It's the hidden jewel of the Caribbean. They ask me all the time, like, well, when are you going to leave? Are you leaving? When are you leaving? And I'm like, I'm here. Like, you're stuck with this white gal. Like I'm getting ready I'm working on my residency after like starting in August. And it's so foreign to them to think that somebody would actually want to leave America, where Belize, we have a phrase like, if America sneezes, Belize catches a cold, because they think that like America hung the moon. And I'm like, nah, man, no. But we won't get into all that. So anyways, speak to that a little bit, just even for people who might be considering going into missions work, or just like, maybe there's this person at church who's like, I just don't know what's next for my life. Speak to the value of just everything I've touched on and we've touched on.
Before Brandon gets into the depth of that, one of the things that Jochen Geisselhart said to us, and I mean, he was skeptical, I think. Hopefully his mind has changed now that we've been here almost 10 years. But basically, Germans, Europeans have the mindset of Americans come overpromise and underdeliver. And so part of our challenge has been not only to make a way for ourselves to prove that we are consistent and continue to show up every day, but is to undo all of the unfulfilled promises that people that have before us have made and have left unfulfilled. And so, go ahead.
Yeah, and a lot of times that happens through short-term stuff. And I was a missions pastor for a decade. I don't know how many teams I've led overseas. It's more than 50. And we host about 3 teams a year, so we've hosted, take out COVID, probably 20, 25 teams since we've been in Germany. And so we love short-term missions. So this is not at all a shot at short-term missions. I think it is very valuable.
Absolutely. Yes, I agree.
But that being said, a lot of that damage happens when short-term missions isn't done correctly. And so just a little side note, in our other job, because we were looking for more stuff to do, apparently, we're also regional administrators for FMI in Europe. And so we help onboard and train and support all the workers here in Europe, as well as working with the national leaders throughout the continent. And one of those big roles in onboarding the workers is help walking them through their first couple of years in the field.
Okay.
FMI has an entirely new deployment process now where we do a 2+3 deployment, we call it. So for those first 2 years when you deploy with FMI, your only focus is learning language, learning culture, and building relationship. And then after you've done that for 2 years and everybody says, hey, okay, we feel good about where you're at, then we write a new field assignment that focuses on what your actual ministry assignment, what your ministry task is going to look like. That's how committed Foursquare is to learning language and culture and building relationship. We're saying if you're going to come for 2 years, like you're going to spend those 2 years learning language and culture. And then after 2 years, we'll start talking about the stuff you're going to do when you're there. And that's so critical because every research organization or piece of literature you read about missions, like the amount of time you spend training and learning language and learning culture is directly correlated to how long you spend on the field. Like, they are so connected. And so it's such a critical piece that we take that time to learn language and culture and spend the time, because we can't understand a culture unless we know the language. And we can't understand a people unless we know their culture. And I teach a cohort on this. I love this stuff. So I'll try not to go too long, but there's one quick little example that's mighty that'll kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about. So the prodigal son, most of us know the story of the prodigal son. He takes his inheritance early, goes away, squanders all his wealth, comes back to his dad broken. And they took this parable and read it in 3 different cultures: an American culture, a Russian culture, and a Tanzanian culture. And they asked the question, why did the prodigal son end up in the situation he was in? The American culture says, because he made poor choices and wasted all his money on wild living, and it was his own fault that he made those decisions, and that's why he ended up in that situation. Russian culture. Russia, for a long time, and we could probably say even again, was under dictators and communist rulers, and you didn't have a lot of freedom of choice. Things just happened to you. And so the Russian culture said there was a famine. That's why he was in the situation he was in, because a famine happened. And as a result of the famine, something beyond his control, he ended up in that situation. Tanzanian culture, like a lot of African cultures, very communal, really highly communal, relies on relationships, relies on community. The Tanzanian answer was because all his friends left him, because his community deserted him. He was in the situation he was in. Now, what's the right answer? Well, the Bible says all 3 things. That passage says all 3 of those things happened.
Wow.
And so all 3 of those are correct answers depending on the culture. But if you don't know your culture, I could be in Tanzania preaching about how we need to make good decisions, and it's going to go right over their head because they're just thinking about community.
Yeah.
And I could be in Russia and saying how we need to take control of our destiny, and it's going to go right over their head because they're just thinking about natural disasters and things that are beyond their control. And so if you don't know the culture and the language, you can't reach the people in their hearts because you don't understand them. And if you don't understand them, Scripture speaks to all of us, but we need to understand how Scripture is read and received in each context. And we can't do that unless we know the culture and unless we take the time to do that. And that only happens over time. Okay, I'm off my soapbox now.
It's so good. I'm looking at the clock and I'm like, yep, we'll just make this a 3-hour episode. No, just that is so good.
If I could just add on, for those that are interested in missions, but maybe aren't comfortable or like have the courage to go and deploy if they're single or they're young. We, this past year, have had 2 college grads that were interested in missions that came into an internship for less than 90 days to get a taste of what it's like to live on the field, to serve in the field with workers. And so if you're listening and you're a college student and you are interested in missions, but don't know really what it's going to take,
Hey. And then we're going to talk offline because I'm looking to launch the exact same thing here in Belize and I love that you said that though, because FMI does have these like midterm trips and they have opportunities for people, not just college students, right?
Not just college students, correct.
Yeah. Of just like, what does it look like to live on the field? I'm not sure I want to commit to being a full worker. And so there's options and there's ways to get involved and get connected. You know, maybe you're a pastor listening to this and you've got a couple people who you're like, I think they need to do this. Reach out to us, reach out to me, reach out to Brandon and Marcie. All this information will be below. Like I'll get you guys connected with how you can get connected to the nations, because that's the heart of the Lord is to be in the nations, I think.
Well, and I know more than some, being that I never wanted to do missions. You know, like I did a short-term trip. I did a month in India and I was like, oh no. But how the Lord worked in my heart once I was ready. And I've taken the experiences from all the short-term trips that I have been on, that I have led. Even that trip to India has brought me to where I am now. And I can proudly say that it has been the hardest, most wonderful, rewarding, difficult 10 years of our lives. And I wouldn't change it for a minute. And it's hard for me to see myself leaving Germany now. But I'm polar opposite of where I was 15 years ago. So God can do amazing things if we're open to it.
Yeah. For sure. And you just said it's hard to see yourself leave Germany. I had thought earlier on, I'm like, dude, she's deep in it. Like she just wants to speak to me in German here. Like forget English. and that's beautiful of what the Lord does. And I think like you just touched on too, you're like, I went to India and I was like, nah, man, that's not it. that's an important, vital role, I think, of people's journeys is even, yes, going on short-term trips, because you never know what the Lord's going to do. If you, people feel called to missions, but maybe they don't know where, try places. Just try. Go get your feet on the ground. And I have a friend who is in Italy now. She's with the Assemblies of God as a missionary associate, but she was here in Belize for a year and a half because she knew she was called to be on the international world, like on the field. She just didn't know where. She had relationships with some missionaries here in Belize, so she came and spent a year, and she's like, nah, that's not it. So now she's in Italy, and she's like, this is it. Like, this is where the Lord would have for me. So, yes. So we're like Brandon said, we're not knocking short-term trips. Like, there's a place, and if it's done well, it can actually be helpful. But there is just, I think, something so important about jumping in and not wanting to leave your country, because the Lord shifts our heart, I think, and really changes it. So I want to ask a couple more things as we're getting close to the end here, but you just said it too, of it's been the most joyous, difficult, challenging, all of the emotions, 10 years. And as you said also, it takes a long time, right, to build relationships. So I don't want to focus on the negatives per se, but we all know missions is not this like glamorous thing. If you think it is, you're in for another story. What's been one of the most challenging things, and how have you seen the Lord kind of work through that and bring you guys through it? You may still be in the middle of it, but I cry on my kitchen floor all the time.
I mean, there's a few. I think for sure one challenging component, and maybe this is fresh in my mind, because we just visited my dad, who we hadn't seen in 5 years, is, you miss family stuff. Like, we've both had grandparents pass away and weren't there for it. You give up that stuff, and the Lord knows those sacrifices. But, you have a community of workers here on the field that understand it. And that's kind of who you turn to, because it's like, it's hard to be there for it. And it's even harder to not be able to be there for it. And so I think that for sure is a big challenge. Another big challenge for me for a few years, especially when we moved to Cologne, was just loneliness. Like, I'm a super social person, and I've always got like a community around me. Like, that's just how I'm wired. And so to not have that for a few years when we moved here, that was really challenging, because we moved to the city, and Marcie just alluded to it, like during COVID, when you weren't allowed to meet with people in Germany, and
it was forbidden.
You weren't allowed to, nothing happened, so you couldn't go do anything. And we didn't know a single soul here. And so it was like super, super lonely. So that was a really big challenge. But, through all those things, God is gracious, and He's with us, and He teaches us things through that, and He meets us in those places, and He, fills those needs in other ways.
I am a different person. I did not experience that.
Marcie liked COVID.
I loved COVID. I loved quiet. I loved the space. I could do a weekend where it was nothing. But that being said, like, the challenge for me was when we first moved. I mean, learning the language and being just immersed in it, like, our brains hurt. Like, we couldn't even watch TV to relax at the end of the night. And the other thing is, when you are married, you're in a relationship, you also maybe have jobs where you're away from each other. And when you are on the field, you are with your spouse all the time, and that's hard. So we've had to learn how to be nice, how to not be nice, how to disagree, but then also be each other's best friend, because that's all we had. And, being around one another for, 24/7, and then COVID, and then, Ukraine war. I mean, it's just dealing with a lot of outside stressors, moving. It's just like, for me, it's just like one of the biggest challenges has been, it's just actually just anxiety. There are a lot of things that I can't control, and it's hard for me to process that sometimes. I'm a verbal processor, but, understanding that we are two different people, and he processes differently than I do. He needs people I don't, It's just learning a lot about each other and about really who you are, because when you're on the field, like, it magnifies your strengths, but also magnifies your weaknesses.
Wow. Yeah, that's so good. And that's a perfect lead into, what are some specific things that people can partner with you in prayer about, with ministry, personal, or what are some prayer things that you have?
Well, coincidentally, as soon as we moved to Cologne, I have started getting knee pain. And I basically, since we've been here in Cologne, which is almost 6 years, have had mobility issues where I limp. I'm in chronic pain and discomfort. And I've done all the tests and have had most of the treatments. And it's just not going away. And it's hard for me to give my 100% when my body hurts. And my family's had to take up a lot of the slack. Thankfully, we're partners in ministry and partners with the nonprofit. Brandon's had to take on a lot more responsibility. But, I need to be healed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's for sure a big prayer request. I think another one is between our ministry locally and our ministry European wide, we just kind of got a lot on our plate, and we travel a lot with those roles. And just finding that balance is always a bit of a tension and a challenge, finding the balance of time focused here versus time focused on the road, finding time for Sabbath and rest amidst that, finding time obviously for our kids. We're real involved in our kids' lives, and those are also great relationship building opportunities, getting to know families and stuff. I coach my son's baseball team. Marcie's the PTA mom for school. Those are great opportunities, but all that is just we just have a lot on our plate. And so finding that balance of things to say yes to versus say no to, and prioritizing time for rest and Sabbath. Yeah, it's an important thing and always kind of a tension we live with. And so that'd be another big prayer request.
And one last thing, we would love prayer for somebody to take over the nonprofit as we continue to grow in both. In the future, there's no way that we have the capacity to do both. As much as we love to do both, we have a small staff currently, but one is planning on leaving, our main project manager. And so we would just love somebody that carries this as a ministry as well, that has our same values and goals, that would help us shepherd this ministry, this nonprofit into the future as we continue to take more responsibility within FMI Europe.
Absolutely. Yes. We will be covering for that. And when we sign off, just because of time, I just want to pray for you, Marcie, as well. How can churches partner with you? What are some even practical ways that churches can partner with you?
Well, partner with us. If we have relationship with you, check in.
Hey.
Like a phone call, an email, a text. It just means so much to hear from our family and friends at home, just to hear how we're doing. If we don't know you, start a relationship. We'd love to get to know you. An established relationship. If you're interested or have people in your congregations who are interested about Germany, we can host teams. It's all based on relationship. And so we would just love new contacts, new relationships, new friendships, new partnerships that are mutual. So
yeah, and I think that's the key too, is that mutual, we don't want to create or maybe feed into the existing stereotype that missions is kind of a one-way thing, right? Like as missionaries we receive, and as churches you give. We want, in the churches that we're in partnership with, we want that to be a mutual thing. And so as we can serve churches as well, whether it's, doing a video or coming and sharing or speaking into this situation or that situation, whatever it looks like, even just being, prayer partners for us, but also we're prayer partners for you. That's so important for us. And so we really try not to enter into relationships with churches that aren't mutual, that aren't, two-way relationships. And so, we always tell our pastors and our church partners, as you have needs, as you have things going on, please let us know and let us know how we can serve you as well. And that's really our heart. And so that's the other side of it too. Think of how missionaries can serve you. Think of it as a two-way thing as a pastor. Think of, what would be useful for me as a pastor from a missionary. And because that's our heart as workers, is to have that mutual relationship.
That's so good. I love that you just said that as well, because I try to have that same philosophy, right? I'm like, let me help you build your mission culture. If you don't have one yet, let's build it. I'm talking with one pastor right now, and that's a high topic of conversation all the time. And she's like, I just need to get my people missional minded. They're not there yet, but how do I do it? And so that's super awesome. So as we wrap up, 2 more questions. One, how can people get in contact with you? Do you have email, website, social media, anything like that? And I'll put all of this down in the show notes as well. But how can people connect with you guys? What's the best way?
Yeah, our email is, so our moniker is Going Deutsch.
Instead of Going Dutch.
A little play on Going Dutch, Going Deutsch, which is Deutsch is German. So our email is Going Deutsch and the number 4 @gmail.com.
Okay.
That's also our socials is Going Deutsch on Insta and on Facebook. And then we, of course, have our nonprofit. So that website is servethecity.Köln, Köln. to check out what we're doing with the nonprofit. And of course, we have our FMI page as well.
On the hub, which is /Brazee.
Yeah. give.foursquare.org/Brazee. So
awesome. Yeah, I'll put all that down below just so it's nice and easy for people.
Thank you.
So yeah, I just, limit the number of clicks that people have to do. It increases engagement. So, well, hey, as we wrap up, is there anything in this conversation that we haven't touched on that you guys wanted to make sure was said or addressed?
I don't think so. I would just reiterate that relationship is everything. Whether you're in ministry in the States or ministry in Germany or in Belize, that it all comes down to relationship, and it shouldn't be transactional, but at the core of it, love, hope, humility, all the things that we represent as followers of Christ. And yeah, missions is just simply being in relationship with somebody and not having an agenda and allowing the Lord to lead them to himself.
That's awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for taking time to just chat with me. I love that we can do this from across the world, and just to encourage our pastors worldwide, our workers and potential workers, everything just in the Lord. So thank you for taking time to be with me today.
Yeah, thanks, Stacy. Thanks for the invitation. We really enjoyed it.
And I'll just add this plug. If people are interested in not just Germany, but in Europe in general, we are your people to get you connected to those works and those workers. And so we're not just the avenue to Germany, but to all of Europe.
Hey, you're the gateway. That's awesome. I love it. Awesome. Well, hey, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Stacy.
I warned you about needing those tissues. Man, I was just so encouraged by listening to Brandon and Marcie's story. The story of God's faithfulness in their lives to answer the prayers of their hearts and the desires of their hearts. The thing I keep coming back to from this conversation is just how much God loves his people. You, me, the nations. He wants you to be a part of seeing his kingdom come on this earth. I hope you were encouraged by this conversation and hearing about what life and ministry looks like in Cologne. If you were encouraged by this conversation and you want to connect with Brandon and Marcie, please reach out to them. As they mentioned, and we've said before, being on the field can be lonely, and knowing that people back home are just connecting and saying, hey, I'm thinking about you, it goes a long way. All of their contact information is down below in the show notes. And while this is a very relational work, there's no sugarcoating it. It does take finances. It takes finances to be able to serve our cities well. And so if you would like to take the next step and partner with them financially, I've also linked their give page below. It's give.foursquare.org/goingdeutsch. Now, maybe you're hearing the tug of the Lord and you're hearing the voice of the Lord in your spirit to pursue international missions, and you're just not ready. Or maybe you're being stirred to build a missional culture in your church. The answer is yes. And we are here to help you. So reach out to myself, reach out to Brandon and Marcie, and we actually have a whole team and a pathway at FMI to help you do just that. But until next time, remember, act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your Lord. You are on mission, no matter where you are, whether it's in your backyard, across the street, or around the globe.